Laura Babcock murder trial. Can cell phone records really prove where someone was? Whatever happened to Laura Babcock the night of July 3, 2012? Her phone was still alive the next day. Although the last outgoing call was made at 7:03 p.m. that night, the 23-year-old's BlackBerry continued to receive calls and texts the morning of July 4. Since that activity was recorded by Babcock's cellular provider, a small but now critical amount of information is known about it. It's information the Crown is attempting to use, more than 5 years later, to prove the whereabouts of Babcock and the two men accused of killing her. Dylan Millard, 32, of Toronto, and Mark Smich, 30, of Oakville, Ontario, are both pleading not guilty to first-degree murder. Read CBC Toronto's coverage. Previous coverage of the Babcock murder trial. Most cell providers log the phone numbers of incoming and outgoing calls and texts, the time and date they were made, the duration of calls, and, importantly, the approximate location of the phone when this activity took place. What's actually recorded is the location of the cell site that a phone connected with in order to place or receive a call or text. These can be, for example, cellular towers or antennas mounted on buildings. Since the range of each cell site is limited to a certain distance, and a phone will often connect to the nearest one, police and prosecutors use this information to prove someone's whereabouts. Or at least they try to. According to call detail records submitted as evidence, the 7:03 p.m. call was 60 seconds in duration and likely made to retrieve Babcock's voicemail. The phone connected with a cell site at 210 Markland Drive in Etobicoke, approximately 400 meters as the crow flies from Dylan Millard's home at 5 Maplegate Court. Dylan Millard, left, and Mark Smich, right, are accused of first-degree murder in the death of Laura Babcock. Facebook, Instagram, using phone records, the Crown is arguing that Babcock, Millard, and Smich were all at or near that address on July 3, 2012. On Thursday, as Justice Michael Code prepped the jury for the evidence, he described a cell phone as being almost like a tracking device. Police know this. Since people now have phones with them nearly everywhere they go, investigators can use them, in cases like these, to figure out where they went. Joseph Sutton, a director for the telecommunications engineering firm m.urder and Associates, describes cellular data records as footprints phones leave behind, but not everywhere. Joseph Sutton, director of engineering for the telecommunications engineering firm m.urder and Associates, says call detail records can't pinpoint exactly where a phone was. CBC, the tracking device metaphor isn't quite accurate, Sutton says, because providers have no way of knowing where a phone is when it's not in use, unless police request special, court-approved surveillance. But once a call or text is made or received, the phone connects with the cell site. At that moment, the network knows where the phone is, Sutton said in an interview. But he admits it's not pinpoint accurate. Sutton says the records can only show a phone was in the range of the cell site it connected with. It's a limitation in the technology that defense lawyers and experts have sought to exploit. Scientifically, it's not quite correct, Joseph Kennedy, a senior manager with Cherry Biometrics, said in an interview. The Virginia-based firm specializes in cellular communications analysis. Kennedy has been called as a defense witness in criminal trials to contest call detail record evidence that attempts to prove a person's whereabouts. You only know an area, a rather large area, where the phone could possibly be, Kennedy said of this kind of evidence. That's all we can scientifically state with confidence. Kennedy says there are several factors that determine what cell site a phone will connect with, and distance is just one of them. Adnan Syed, convicted in 2000 of killing Baltimore high school student Hae-Min Lee, will have a new trial because his conviction relied heavily on call detail records. Carlos Beria Reuters, the topography of an area, obstruction from buildings, and the weather are all things that could cause a phone to connect with another site. Kennedy also says, if the nearest cell site is too busy with other calls, the network will connect a phone to another site that could be further away. It's not going to go to the closest tower, "It's going to go to the clearest tower," he said. Kennedy says this type of evidence has led to many convictions in the United States, but it doesn't always hold up. His colleague, Michael Cherry, worked with the defense in the case of Lisa Marie Roberts of Portland, or. Roberts spent more than a decade in prison before her manslaughter conviction was overturned in 2014. The original,